Welcome everybody to Motorcar Marketplace's Bring a Trailer Highlight Show. This past week we had some gated Ferraris, some unique BMWs, and a sweet Audi R8 V10, as well as many more cars go through the auctions. I'm your host, Mac Moore, and I will break down each and every single one of the sales that we found interesting. Stay tuned. Alright, so let's kick things off with the 95 Land Rover Defender 90, or D90, as it's commonly referred to, that sold earlier this week for $88,000 on July 3rd, actually, and it's in the iconic AA yellow that we all think of when we think of a Defender. This one, while it did sell for 88 grand, there's very good reason that it sold at such a high price. That's because the mileage is, nil for this car. It's only got 15,000 miles on it, and it's just pristinely kept. It actually came out of Lux Automotive in Salt Lake City, which I've been to before and visited. It's a very nice dealership. This Defender 90, like I've said, is just gorgeous and extremely well kept. As far as the price goes, it got 88 grand, which to some people's a steal, to some people's maybe just a bit too much. But considering the mileage and how original the truck is and how well kept it is, it's really tough to say that it was a bad buy. These trucks really have been going up in value a lot over the past couple of years. So I think this is rather kind of just a safe bet. I think we're going to continue to see a rise in the Defenders. These are coveted trucks, and just keep them in original shape. And if this one maintains its low mileage, then it will be, a safe bet for the future. All right, the second car I want to talk about was one that I've actually already made a video for, and so I'll link the video in the description below. But it's the 68 Lamborghini Miura P400 that's sold, and it's actually the second highest sold vehicle dollar-wise on Bring a Trailer for $990,000. Only one vehicle has actually eclipsed the $1 million mark, and that is, I believe it was a 50s Mercedes Gullwing 300 SL. This car, like I've said in the video, I'll just go over it quickly. It's was redone, I think, in 2014 to an extremely high concourse level standard. Gorgeous exterior, gorgeous interior. I really like the blue with a couple neat features in that. So if you want to learn more about that, check out my video. Okay, and one of the unique BMWs I was talking about earlier in the introduction is something that we've already seen. Actually, we saw it last week, and almost to a exact replica of it. This one is an 02 BMW M3 Coupe in Laguna Seca blue, 6-speed manual, of course, and it's sold for $40,250. The one we saw last week was an 01 M3 Coupe, also in Laguna Seca blue, and it sold for 40 grand, also a 6-speed as well. They have pretty much identical miles. This one had 85,000, and I believe this one, yes, this one also has 85,000 miles. This one seems to be just as beautifully photographed. Super clean car, of course, and it just goes to show that these E46 M3s, especially in Laguna Seca blue, are extremely coveted vehicles. When they haven't been messed with and haven't been modded out to all hell, and they do have their 6-speed manuals. They're pretty much the ultimate driving machine that BMW has set out to create. They keep getting strong numbers, especially in the correct color. So it's super interesting to see. I wonder if we're going to see an appreciation on these vehicles. I don't think we will, but I don't think we'll see too much appreciation. But I do think we'll see, just a gradual incline in prices headed towards the future. But yeah, at $40,000, these E46 M3s are looking very strong right now. Okay, so sticking with the BMW theme, and especially early 2000s BMW theme, I think we should talk about an 03 BMW M5 that sold for 36 grand this past week. And this one also has a 6-speed manual transmission, only 64,000 miles on this M5. A very powerful V8. These are, the high-powered German sedans that you tend to think of when you think of BMW M division cars. Very clean interior. I actually am a fan of the fake wood on the dash and the handbrake. I know that most people aren't. I do love the brown interior as well. This one's in a very, very, very clean car, like I said before. And like the E46 M3s, these cars are also not without their own faults. Both the E46 M3 and the M5 from this generation are very well documented for all the shortcomings and failures they have. But the internet forums and all of that seem to have found fixes for them, especially the Vanos system. And so, I think prices will continue to rise for these cars, not at the rapid pace that we've seen over the past few years. For a while, it just seemed like they were shooting up in 5% a week. But now, I think these cars will continue to go up in value, albeit a little bit slower. But still, I think that as BMW begins to produce more and more cars that are almost self-driving at this point, especially comparatively to these, purebred, enthusiast-driven cars are going to be highly sought after. And that's only going to make their values go up, especially because, some people say they just aren't making them like this anymore. Unsurprisingly, a couple of interesting Porsches sold this past week on Bring a Trailer, so I want to take a look at those right now, starting with a 996, the dreaded 996. This one was actually very unique. It was a 19,000 mile 04 911 40th anniversary edition, so of course it was a 6-speed. The 40th anniversary editions, I don't know if everybody knows this, but they all had the X51 power kit on it. But what makes this 996 a little unique, in my opinion, especially because it's such a coveted model, is that despite selling for $41,000, it actually has not had its IMS bearing fixed on it, which is a little surprising, especially for this, like I said, coveted of a model. You would think that the seller would have put that in there the moment he got the car. So I just find that a little bizarre. However, the buyer for this one did say that they are going to put in the IMS bearing almost immediately. So that's a good sign. At least this one won't die due to engine failure in the future. And this X51 power package, if you don't know, actually gives the car a boost in horsepower up from the standard 320. It actually has horsepower up to 345, and being just a regular 911 Carrera, essentially, all that power is sent to the rear wheels. So that makes these cars really valuable, in my opinion. And a 996 that's sold for over $40,000 that didn't have the IMS bearing issue resolved on it is something that is rather interesting, and potentially shows a rise in 996 prices in the future. The second 911 that really caught my eye this past week was actually one of my dream cars, and it's a 911 Safari build, and I think these are splendid. I mean, they're one of the coolest cars you could have out there. A 911 that's good both on the street and in the sand and in dirt and everything. I'm just dying to take a 911 off-road, especially with the capabilities that they have. This build seems to be done to a very, very, very high standard, almost to like a Lee Keen type of standard. And of course, selling for $98,000, you'd expect that from basically any 911 build. This one has a lot of modern touches. It does have the Porsche Classic stereo, which you can see right here. And it's a very cool car in that it was actually featured in Ted Gushew's 2019 book Type 7, which is also a Porsche book. Tons of videos that were done on this car. Tons of videos of watching it slide around out in the California desert, which is really cool. If I was given any car that's sold on Bring a Trailer this past week, this very well might be the car for that I would pick. And it actually has kind of an interesting story. The donor car for this was in an accident and had a ton of miles on it, so it seemed like the perfect donor car for this type of build. And I know a lot of purists out there hate that. I could care less. I think these are the coolest types of 911s that you can get out there, potentially even cooler than like the RWB builds and stuff like that. So for $98,000, I think that this is a really good buy. I believe the Safari 911s that you can purchase and build on your own cost about $120 to $150. So one that's already built for you, albeit maybe not to your exact spec, but to a very high standard for $98,000 is a good buy. And I don't think you're going to lose money on these types of cars in the future anyway. So the third 911 that really caught my eye this week was also another heavily modified one This one being a 72 911. Now, the story behind this is that it had a 964's motor that was rebuilt to displace 3.6 liters, and then also came with a 5-speed manual transmission, as well as brakes from a Boxster S. So kind of like bits and pieces of all generations of Porsches sprinkled into this one. The interior on it, of course, looks, race ready, basically. Very highly done build. The Momo Prototipo steering wheel, which is you're gonna need in a car like this. It's spectacular. The 964 engine looks gorgeous in it. For 125 grand, I think that if you don't mind a white 911, which I don't particularly like white 911s or white cars for that matter, it'd have to be just a steal for me to go ahead and take it. But if you don't mind white, this is one heck of a buy for 125 grand. I know most people out there want to build their own, but for this price, it's an extremely capable machine. It's always going to photograph well. Just keep it in the garage, keep it well maintained. And I'm sure the performance on it is spectacular because you have an extremely lightweight body with a 964 motor that has, gotten a little bit bigger, extremely clean interior, very high build standard. It's going to be a good buy all around. As for future value on this, you're probably safe in getting what you put into it, at least as the buyer here for $125,000. These early 911s are going to do nothing but go up in value. So this one's done because this one's okay just because it's been built to such a high standard, and it's not tremendously unique to the point where nobody would want it. There's a lot of potential buyers out there in the future, so I think this one was well bought, and it's going to be a ton of fun for the next buyer. All right, another car that sold this week that really caught my eye was an 84 Audi Quattro, the original Quattro. And rally fans will know, or I guess Audi enthusiasts also will know, that this is the car that dominated the rally scene in the mid-'80s and set the gold standard for rallying in the future, especially with their Quattro four-wheel drive system. This one was actually originally a black car that has now been repainted in Amazon Blue Metallic, and it has 161,000 miles on it. So that probably explains why it sold for under 30 grand. These cars, I find them very cool, and I'll turn my head for them all day long. There was only 664 of these sold in the U.S. And like I said, at $28,000, I think that's a fair price for this car. The interior has had the front seats re-dyed, and it's in decent shape. It's just got a lot of mileage on it. But we have seen a rise in value for these cars in the past, and I think we're going to continue to see that headed on in the future. If you look at previous Audi Quattro sales on Bring a Trailer, they tend to be going in an upward trajectory. This is dating back to 2016. And even for the Haggerty value guides, they've been kind of waffling a little bit, but again, they've tended to go upward. So I think we'll see that headed for the future. I don't know if these are going to go up at a very rapid pace, but I do think they are going to increase in value in the future. And 28 grand for this one seems like a fair number for both the buyer and the seller. Okay, now this is a car that I realized, or I guess I didn't realize how many people actually liked it after reading the comment section on this auction. I have a few things to say about it, but a 2019 Ford Mustang Bullet. It sold for $37,250, which I think is a fair price. It's practically a brand new car. It's only got 4,000 miles on it. I hate movie cars. It's just so try hard of a manufacturer to make a car that's based on a movie. And the first one that comes to mind for me was when I saw it was a yellow Camaro Transformers edition right after the Transformers movies came out. And it's just so try hard and just it doesn't make any sense to me. And I think it's really silly. Bullet is a movie that came out in 1968. And I understand that Steve McQueen drove the car, but it's a movie that came out in 1968. This is incredibly dated. And for Ford to just keep going back and basing a car off of it seems almost a little childish. to me. It's a little like we're just clinging on to our heritage, but they have their loyal buyers keep on buying them, even though it's a movie that, you know, most people today don't even know, haven't even watched. So for $37,250, I think it's a decent price. I don't think these are going up in value at all, and I think, you know, 10 years down the road, these cars are going to be worth just as much as any other regular Ford. And there's going to be people on Craigslist who pull the old, you know, no lowballers, I know what I have type of stuff. But it's a cool color. You know, I really love dark green on cars, but this is just not. It doesn't do it for me. A movie, a car based on a movie just doesn't do it for me. So, each week I want to try and get in one sub $10,000 car, and for this week, this 2003 Volkswagen GTI 20th anniversary edition even actually really caught my eye. I think it's a gorgeous car. I love GTIs in general. This one's jazz blue with two-tone cloth interior. It's sold for $7,700. It's got 93,000 miles on it. There's a couple things wrong with the interior, a couple trim pieces that are just kind of coming apart. But again, it's, you know, it's almost it's a 17-year-old car with, you know, nearly 100,000 miles on it. It's not gonna be perfect, but for under 10 grand, you know, if it runs and drives fine, I think it's a good buy. Are these really going to go up in value? Probably not. It's just it's a GTI at the end of the day. Maybe if you keep in a storage shed for years and years and years, but as you can see from the pictures, there's scuffs on it already. Yeah, it's a fun little car for under $10,000. I really like it. Okay, one of the gated Ferraris I was alluding to earlier was this one, a manual F430 from 2006. It's actually the car that I most looked forward to for this week's past auction, and it sold for $163,000, which we all know that the manual F430s command a premium over the Formula One style flappy paddle gearbox F430s. This one is very well kept with 18,000 miles, and of course it would be well kept. It's a Ferrari, and albeit a manual Ferrari too. I think that's very much in line with the market right now for these cars. 163,000, given the mileage, is pretty much dead on. I am going to be having a video come out a little later this week about these cars, so just keep an eye out for that, and I'll go a little bit more in depth on the difference between the F1 style gearbox as opposed to the manual gearbox, and what the premium is for the manual over the F1 style gearboxes. I have driven F430s in the past, and they are just as cool as you would think they are. I think it's one of the prettiest Ferraris ever made. Really well bought and well sold for 163 grand. You know, you're not going to lose too much money as long as you don't just rag it out with a huge number of miles on it. But this one was dead in line with the market. 2018 Audi R8 V10 Coupe, rear wheel steer, so a rear wheel drive car, and S-tronics, so automatic, or the paddle shifters. I think this is a great buy at $125,000 though. It's a heck of a lot of car. I mean, super new, but these cars are lightning fast. It's got the 5.2 liter V10, only 4,300 miles on it. Audi R8 is just a gorgeous design. This is the second gen R8. Great body, great everything on the car. I believe it's just pristine condition. I think these are so pretty, and they're not what you see every day. You know, I think the paint job on this one, the red stripes, really nice touch on it. Do I like it more than a Gallardo? I might possibly. I think these are a better buy than a Gallardo, and you certainly aren't going to get like a 2018 Huracan for 125 grand. So I think this is the way to go if you want to go for like an entry-level supercar. Then the Audi R8 is more than probably the way to go, and it certainly gives any, you know, 911 a run for its money in terms of value. Okay, the last car I wanted to feature was this time capsule of an 89 Ferrari 328 GTS. It has only 700 miles on it. Obviously a gated 5-speed manual transmission, and it's sold for, despite being even older than I am, $228,000 for a 328. That's a very, very, nearly a grotesque price for the car. But it will be a very nice addition to someone's collection out there. Apparently the car's headed to Miami, and the buyer said that they want to drive it. I don't know if I would necessarily drive my 700-mile 89 Ferrari 328 just because so much of the value is tied up in the miles for this one. And honestly, excellent driver quality 328s can be found all day long for about a third of the price. So this is more of a museum piece and something that would just sit in the corner of a collection as opposed to being a driver, in my opinion. But again, it's not my money. For 228 grand, if you don't ever drive it, maybe it goes up in value, but that is such a high price for a 328. I don't know if you're going to get any higher than that. Alright, that was this week's Bring a Trailer Auction recap video. Thanks so much for watching. Hit the like and subscribe button, and stay tuned for more exotic car and classic car market updates in the future. Thanks.